rings free. Oh, New York High. Accept my hopes and dreams. Gotta have you or I'll die. From that New York High. Oh, New York High. You brutal island. Oh, New York High. I try to leave, fly to the sky, get new hopes and dreams. If I stay here, I might die from that New York High. Oh, 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 heart and love-struck eyes.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this homecoming service at Judson Memorial Church, where no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are always welcome. My name is Micah, and I'm one of the ministers here at Judson, and I am not alone. I also have Reverend Dr. Valerie Holly, our associate minister, and our brand new transition minister, Reverend Julie Johnson Staples, JD. You will see both of them later on in this service, along with a bevy of amazing Judson community members who are joining together to create this beautiful homecoming service for all of you. Remember, we're also meeting outside after this service for an in-person coffee hour. So if you want to truck it to Thompson Street, I would love to see you in person. And I know that I've been away from this space for a while. I've been away from this lectern for a while. But this is an amazing home to come back to. Thank you for holding this space together. Thank you for being Judson. Thank you for making Judson an amazing home to feel welcome at, no matter how long you've been away from it. I invite you to breathe with me. Breath has become so important to the beginning of each of my days, especially while I've been away from you. And I would love to just know that we're sharing some breaths as we enter this sacred space together. So if you would and you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. And take a deep breath in. And let it out. And shake off anything that you might have brought into this space that you don't need to keep with you. And take another deep breath in. And let it out. And whatever is still weighing heavy on your shoulders, remember that we are carrying it together. And take another deep breath in. And let it out. And let's give gratitude for one another as we continue to breathe into this homecoming service, remembering that this space is for all, that you are always welcome, and that we make Judson. We are Judson.
Good morning, Judson. This is our land acknowledgement and commitment to action, remixing words by the brilliant prophet Octavia E. Butler. Judson's physical space stands on the unceded land of the Lenape people. Our community acknowledges the Lenape community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. And we make this acknowledgement as part of our work to dismantle the ongoing legacies of Christian supremacy, settler colonialism, and white supremacy. We also commit to change. Everything you touch, you change. Everything you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Therefore, if we refuse to change, we run the risk of being godless. But if we commit to looking back at where we've been, looking honestly at who we are, and looking forward to who we can become, we might just touch God. We believe this truth and belief initiates and guides action, or it does nothing. So, what does community look like in the face of this truth? What does joy look like in the face of this truth? What does utopia look like in the face of this truth? What does the future look like in the face of this truth? We not only acknowledge the past, but we commit to present action. Our futures await our willingness to change.
Good morning, everybody. Our call to worship comes from a poem by Danez Smith called Little Prayer. Let ruin end here. Let him find honey where there was once a slaughter. Let him enter the lion's cage and find a field of lilacs. Let this be the healing. And if not, let it be.
Our ancient testimony this morning comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 30 through 37 from the New Revised Standard Version. They went on from there and passed through Galilee. He did not want anyone to know it, For he was teaching the disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him. And 3 days after being killed, he will rise again." But they did not understand what he was saying, and they were afraid to ask him. Then they came to Capernaum, and he was in the house. He asked them, "What were you arguing about along the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. He sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." Then he took a little child and put it among them, and taking the child in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such as this child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." May God add a blessing to the reading of this ancient testimony.
The modern testimony, excerpts from Padre Otama's In the Shelter. It has taken years to continue to live into the truth that if I believe we are from God and for God, then we are from goodness and for goodness. To greet sorrow today does not mean that sorrow will be there tomorrow. Happiness comes too, and grief, and tiredness, disappointment, surprise, and energy. Chaos and fulfillment will be named, as well as delight and despair. This is the truth of being here, wherever here is today. It may not be permanent, but it is here. I will probably leave here, and I will probably return. To deny here is to harrow the heart. Hello to here. The Christian story of incarnation in the body of a boy whose ancestors were both famous and infamous, is one that can spur us towards living with the courage that is indigenous to us. To be human is to be in the image of something good, an image that comes from imagination. To be human is to be in the imagination of God. And the imagination is the source of integrity as well as cracks. To be born is to be born into a story of possibility, a story of failure, a story of imagination, and the failure of imagination. To be born is to be born with the possibility of courage. Hello to courage.
Of my treacheries and treasons, there's not time enough for telling. And although I had my reasons, I'm sure you'd find them uncompelling. There's a ledger up in heaven that is heavy with the record of my sin. But every morning I wake up and find you there, and you let me try again. Well, Jesus called for his disciples, and he said, boys, you'd better hurry. All these cowboys with their Bibles have got me more than slightly worried. 'Cause when I told them turn the other cheek, I meant learn to take it on the goddamn chin. But that gospel, it got garbled. Now I'm afraid I'm gonna have to try again. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all people proud and pitiful. We flail, we fail, we fall. Well, first we walk and then we run. Oh, and baby, then we stumble. Let's spread our wings up toward the sun, and together we can tumble. And if you don't believe in miracles, let's just say that that makes two of us, my friend. But ain't it something like a miracle? But every day we get to try again. Yes, ain't it something like a miracle? But every day we get to try again.
Would you pray with me? May I say what I need to say, and may you hear what you need to hear. Amen. Whew. Okay, so here we go. I'll bet you thought this sermon was going to be delivered from the sanctuary of our beloved meeting room. And I'll bet at least some of you were still quietly holding out hope that it just might be delivered in the great outdoors in front of a beautiful lake as part of our annual Judson Weekend Retreat. But even though some of you might be missing the full view of my primitive Baptist jumps and gesticulations, you'll just have to settle today for my big, puffy face all up in your screen. Surprise. I have been learning to delight in surprises lately, or at least to accept them with the most grumbly grace I can muster. So instead of inhabiting the meeting room, I wanted to deliver this sermon from right here, right where I am, right where I have spent the majority of the past 6 months, my living room. If you've been counting, as I know I have, It has been exactly 6 months since I last had the honor of speaking with you all for more than a few minutes. I haven't offered a sermon since March 14th, 2021, and I would love to report to you all that these 6 months of health issues and heaviness have gifted me with epiphany after epiphany, with tons of spiritual awakenings, with myriad miracles that I'm just busting to tell you all about. But if I'm being honest, I've mostly just been dozing off while watching The Golden Girls. It has been a completely disorienting experience spending every day stuck inside a tiny set of unexciting square footage situated smack dab in the center of the most exciting city in the world. I have spent the majority of these 6 months watching Judson from afar, from this place, sending beams of gratitude to the leaders of this community, to Valerie and Roy and our staff and Keen and so many of you who so lovingly co-create this place and people we call Judson. And I have so often wished to be there with you, all of you, so many times while my body kept me right here in this apartment. I have spent these last few months wanting to be anywhere but here, and mostly wanting to be right there with you, but instead I've been wandering through the wilderness inside these apartment walls. And I promise this isn't a pop quiz, but do any of you remember the last question that I asked you all in my sermon way back on March 14th, 2021? Anyone? No pressure. I have learned to love simply speaking into a video void and getting nothing back. My last sermon was delivered on the 1-year anniversary of the start of our online services, and I asked all of you this question. Where are you? And when I asked that question, I didn't yet know I'd soon be physically away from our building and from you for so long. I was asking the question spiritually. Where are you? Which is, if you remember, also the very first question that God asks in the Hebrew Bible. The very first question that God asks any human being in our sacred scriptures is encapsulated in the Hebrew word ayeka, which in English means, where are you? And this is a groundbreaking, earth-shaking question from God, because God, when God says ayeka, isn't asking about a physical location. In Hebrew, ayeka doesn't mean where are you physically. In Hebrew, to ask someone where they physically are, one would say, Eifo ata. But in this Garden of Eden story, God doesn't say Eifo ata. God says ayeka. Not where are you physically, but where is your spirit? Where is your heart? Where is your soul? Basically, how are you doing? Really, actually, how are you doing? How are you feeling about what's happening around you, and what are you doing about it? And this is not only God's first question to a human in our recorded sacred scriptures. I'd like to believe that it's God's first question to us every morning that we're lucky enough to wake up and give life another chance. Ayeka. I've thought about that word so many times over these past 6 months as I have spent my time wandering the wilderness of this apartment. In times of fear, I've thought of God asking me, Ayeka, how are you? Where are you? In times of anger, I've thought of demanding of God, Ayeka, where are you? How are you? In times of isolation, I've thought of reaching out to every single one of you and begging, Ayeka, where are you? How are you? And today, as we celebrate our homecoming at Judson, as we enter a new phase of our transition, I want to add 2 new questions to this question and make it a holy trinity. So, where are you? Where do you want to go? And who do you need to be in order to get there? These are the questions that I hear being asked in today's ancient and modern testimonies. Where are you? Where do you want to go? And who do you need to be in order to get there? If you look at our text from the Gospel according to Mark, these questions fill the gaps between every line. And this is a classic Markan scene. Throughout Mark's Gospel, you get the same comedy act. Jesus tries to tell his friends, his fellow travelers, exactly what's happening, and time and again, these companions, these disciples, these goof-offs, are off somewhere else, dithering about something they don't even need to be doing. Jesus keeps giving them the new roadmap, the best rerouting, and these guys just don't get it. They just don't listen. They might be physically traveling right beside Jesus, but their hearts, their minds, their spirits are somewhere else. Somewhere far away, trying to figure out which one of them is the greatest, obsessed with their own status and with grand status quo ideas, when all Jesus wants them to understand is the simple fact that in order to truly follow him, in order to truly follow God's will, in order to truly be where he and God are, they must do one thing: question all of the old maps and ways that the world has taught them to follow and go a different direction. And to be fair, the new roadmap is not that attractive. It seems pretty bumpy. Toward the end of this excerpt, Jesus tells his friends that in order to be first, they'll need to be last, that they'll need to be servants of all, and that they need to welcome and respect pesky children the same way they would an adult. These 2 instructions might be so commonplace to us now that they seem like watered down, trite, embroiderable platitudes to casually throw onto a throw pillow. But back then, they were radical statements. And not only back then, but right now, they are still radical statements. These are revolutionary instructions for a group of persnickety people who just moments earlier were distracting themselves by arguing over which one of them was the greatest. And spoiler alert, these disciples still don't get it. We've still got a whole 7 more chapters of Mark's Gospel left, and it follows the same winding road. Jesus continues to tell them exactly where they need to go and who they need to be in order to actually follow him, and they never understand. They never take the time to understand. These disciples might not come out and clearly say why they keep turning away from the roadmap that Jesus is clearly laying out for them, but their hard-headedness and their hard-heartedness reminds me of how Adam answers God way back in the book of Genesis. Because when God asks Ayeka, "Where are you?" you know what Adam says in answer to God? God says, "Ayeka, where are you? How are you? Where is your heart, your head, your spirit?" And Adam answers back, "I was afraid, and so I hid." I was afraid, and so I hid. I think that's basically what these disciples are saying to Jesus with their dense dismissal of his instructions. It's scary to step back. It's scary to step aside, to look at the landscape around you and humbly reroute. It's far easier to disappear into your fear and hide from the truth. And this is not a time for hiding. It's a time for humble hope. Here at Judson, we're calling this Sunday Homecoming Sunday, and we're coming home to a place in tremendous transition. We've even hired a transition minister to help us to envision where we are, where we want to go, and who we need to be in order to get there. And I will certainly let Reverend Julie outline her own ideas for how she envisions her role as our transition minister. But here's what I'll say I hope for myself and for all of us during this time. I hope we reimagine what it means to actually come home to Judson. I hope we stay grounded in the strong roots of the home we've created here, and I hope we use that as a foundation to create a wholly new home. I hope we feel oriented enough to be okay getting disoriented and reoriented. I hope we already think of this home as a firm enough foundation, a flowing fount of blessing, and if we do, that means that we can stand a little foundation shaking and boat rocking. And I don't know how many country music fans we have out there in the Judson congregation, but if you know the Gospel of Maren Morris, she's got a song that basically is a remix of what Jesus is saying in our ancient testimony. If the bones are good, the rest don't matter. The house don't fall when the bones are good. We've got good bones here. So let's rattle them a bit and see what we become. Because transition is a birthplace for imagination. No pressure, but we are rendering a completely new reality together. So get into it. This is process theology. God is change. Come home to change. And if we're actually going to talk about coming home, I would say that the act of actually coming home is not a constant doing, but a careful deepening. It's not a chaotic spinning, but it is a kairotic reimagining of our entire spirituality. It's not giving in to unnecessary noise, but rather leaning into the necessary work of listening for the still, small voice that comforts you with one hand and with the other slowly nudges you forward. Where are you? Where do you want to go? Who do you need to be in order to get there? Where are we? Where do we want to go? Who do we need to be in order to get there? I've spent so many months wishing I were anywhere but the place I am right now. But now I realize that it takes courage to be exactly where you are. It takes courage to name where you are, to imagine where you want to go, and then to create who you need to be. Trust the bones, trust the foundations, trust the founts, and let that trust prepare you for the gorgeous stumbling. I pray that we keep stumbling and tumbling and falling. Transformation awaits us not only at the end of this transition with a capital T, but throughout all the transitions that are packed into every day we allow ourselves to wake up reborn into a reborn world. Are you feeling lost? Great. It gives us something to find. Are you feeling unmoored? Great. It gives us somewhere to float. Are you feeling uncomfortable? Great. It gives us someone to become. I pray that we will find, float, and become together. Welcome home. You are Judson. We are Judson. I can't wait to figure out again what that means. And I wrote a little prayer for our homecoming. So I wonder if you might close your eyes for a few moments and join me in a little imagining. This is a prayer for coming home. Someone might have built this space with their hands, but you have built this place with your heart. It has sheltered your worst and it has housed your best. It has affected, protected, and infected you. You have tended, befriended, and offended it. You have made and been a mess. You have guessed at guesting in other awkward areas, gone away and assessed. You have strayed and transgressed. You might be confused, but you are a bruised blessing. The corners that cradled your timeouts, the rugs that received your hangouts, the ceilings that surrounded your freakouts, all of these ragged, jagged joints point you back to you. Don't be embarrassed to change. Even corners, rugs, and ceilings warp and wither and waste away, and you don't hear them complaining. They simply reshape themselves into who they know they now need to be. Don't be afraid to let walls fall and dreams dissolve. New visions will fill the spaces and create the places to which we return. May you always be returning, awestruck as a child, surprised to find that home is both a remembering and a forgetting, a setting and a letting go, a believing and a receiving, a building up and a tearing down, a comfort and a cross to cast off. May the corners always cradle you. May the rugs always receive you. May the ceilings always surround you. But may you also always step back, stretch out, look up, and witness your world opening wider every time you ask, where am I? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to be in order to get there? While home expands to hold your ever-evolving answers. Amen.
I went down to the sea to watch the sunrise. I went down to the salty water to watch the sunrise, to rise. Oh, take me down to that salty water. I'll wake up at 6 a.m. to watch that sunrise, to rise. Help me, I'm at sea in my motel room. I cannot sleep, oh, I can feel my doom. Help me, I'm at sea in my bed in my motel room. I'm at sea, I can't sleep in my motel room. Help me, I'm at sea in my motel room. I cannot breathe, oh, I can feel my doom. It's just me in this ship underneath the moon. It's just me shipwrecked in my motel room. Always seems I've been lost at sea. Always seems I've been lost for years. Oh, the waves, they're caving in on me, and I can't breathe. Oh, the ceiling and the walls, they're kissing one another, and I'm in between.
Thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. Even when my feet are not on the ground. Thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. Even when my feet are not on the ground.
And I'll be your
lost, but it seems that I'm found.
When you're
Even when my
feeling
feet are not on the
down.
ground.
And I'll be your
lost, but it seems that I'm found.
When you
Even
cannot
when my feet are
find
not
the
on the
ground, I'll be
It's
your
a sea of my own making. What is given and what is taken.
and I'll be
It's a
your
sea of my own making. What is given
cannot
and
find
what
the
is
ground.
taken. Thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. I'm found, I'm found, I'm found, I'm found.
I thought I was lost, but it seems that I'm found. I'm found, I'm found, I'm found at sea. Thank you.
And now this service is ending, but our service in the world continues. Remember to check in with where you are, where you want to go, and who you need to be to get there. Judson's figuring it out as we go along, so let's commit to continuing to figure it out together. And I hope that if you can make it to Thompson Street in person today, we can do some of that figuring out in person today. See you soon. Amen.
is it.